गुरु साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः. ओम. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. In Sugama, 66th point, replying to the objection raised by somebody, some non-Advaitins, against the Atma Ekatva. Okay. First answer was, first question was that Atma Ekatva, that is, Atma is a Nirvishesha Chinmatram, pure consciousness, which is distinctionless, without any distinction. Distinctionless pure consciousness is cannot be known by any pramanas. There is no pramana for knowing that there is pure consciousness. This was the objection. Yattavat ashankyate nirvishesha chinmatre pramanam napashyamah. Because all pramanas reveal only savishesha vastu. This was his objection. To this, Satchidanandendra Swamiji's reply is like this. Is it okay? Okay. He says, we are not natena kinchit anishtam apadyate asmakam. If there is no pramana to prove the distinctionless consciousness, it doesn't make any difference to our view, because nahivayam pramana balena aikatmyam pratipadyamah. We accept that there is non-dual atma, ekatma. That there is a non-dual atma is not established by pramana. Therefore, for us, that there is no pramana to prove the distinctionless consciousness doesn't affect us, doesn't make any dent upon us, because we don't believe or we don't accept that Advaita, non-dual Chaitanyam is known through pramanas. It is not known through pramanas. Is today 26th? Oh, 26th. I should have been in Gudivada because our Guruji's, our Aradhana is today, happens to be today. I couldn't go due to some reasons. Today is the 26th. Our Gudivada Swamiji, Nirvikalpananda Bharati's Aradhana today. This is the day he left his body. Early morning he left his body. Okay. Now, so there is no pramana for which, anyway, to remember him best is only Vedanta, because all our memories about him is only Vedanta. So you discuss Vedanta, you remember him. That is the only way of remembering. Natena kinchit anishtam apadyate, because nahi vayam pramana balena aikatmyam pratipadyamah. We are not trying to prove non-duality through any pramana. Kintu swatassiddhameva aikatmyam shastrena upadishyate iti. But we only say that the Atmatvam is only Swatassiddham. That non-duality is Swatassiddham, we are only going to point out. Swatassiddham is already in your Anubhava. It is self-existing. That means you don't have to prove it. What is Swatassiddham? Swatassiddham means there is no need to prove. Atma is Advitiyam is Swatassiddham. Means it is self-established in everybody's experience. everybody's experience says that Atma is non-dual. You don't have to prove it. You don't have to bring it about. Only there is a misunderstanding about it, a misconception, a wrong assumption about it. The wrong assumption needs to be corrected in the light of the same Swatasiddha Atma, keeping the self-existing Atma at its background. Okay, keeping the self-existing Atma at its background. On the basis of that, we disprove the wrong assumption a person has. A person has Adhyasa. This Adhyasa can be disproved against the background of non-duality of Atma. Atma's ekatvam is anubhava siddham, swatas siddham. Nobody need to prove, because that is there all along in our anubhava. That is a self-existing and everybody has it. Taking that alone as a basis, we try to disprove the duality or any other conception we have. Okay, Shastrena Upadishyate. Shastra is only pointing out, not trying to prove it. What you already know, he is only pointing out. Okay. I think for this, we have given in the last class a very common man's example. A person has come. A person was expected. Let us start this way. A person was expected to come from Bangalore, but somebody has come. He sees them, and he thought he is only of our people alone, Holy Narsapura only. He didn't know that he is coming from Bangalore. He is from only Holy Narsapura. He thought that he is Holy Narsapura only. And now he asked the person, when will he come? When will he come? He has not yet come. When is he expected to come? He told he will come. The other person replies, yes, he is supposed to come and he is expected to come. We got an information that he is coming any time now. Now the person, now he is seeing somebody here and he asked him to sit there and he is seated there. And program should start. They say, oh, we are waiting for the right person, the remains person to come. Let us wait a few more minutes. 5 minutes passed, 10 minutes passed. People ask, what about the program? We have come to attend the program. They say, oh, sorry, the main person who is expected to come has not yet come. Then after some time, somebody came. And do you think he is the person? No. He says, as soon as he came, he did namaskar to the person who was already sitting. And they say, hey, what are you waiting for? Why don't you start? He says, we are waiting for the person. This is the person sitting here. He's come much before on. Oh, is he the one? I didn't know. I didn't know means when he says, I did not know, did he not know the person? See, did he not know the person when he said, I did not know? He knows, he is seeing the person right in front of him. Only he is unable to identify. He is not unable to see. He is seeing. He is directly witnessing but unable to identify. That is the only difference. So, Atma's Advitiyatvam is there in your Anubhava right now. You are seeing it. It is in your Anubhava. Seeing in the sense, it is a self-evident Anubhava. But you are not identifying. In your identification, there is a mistake, not in the experience. Non-dual Atma is a matter of experience. You don't have to bring a new experience of Advaita Atma. You don't have to create a new experience of non-dual Atma. Non-dual Atma is a matter of everybody's experience. Okay. It is everybody's experience. But in the identification, even while seeing it, mind is thinking as something else. So, in spite of seeing, there is a wrong identification, misidentification that needs to be corrected. Similarly, he is seeing the person, see in the illustration, the person has come and he asked him to be seated. He is looking at him and he's talking about the person has to come, we have to start the program, and they are waiting. Well, another few more people come, they say that no, we are waiting for the children. After some time, 10 to 15 minutes, when somebody comes and tells, hey, what are you waiting for? This is the person supposed to come. Oh, then he is surprised. He says, is he the person? Is he the person we are waiting for? But we have been seeing it. Is he here? Yes, he is here. I've been seeing it. But still we are waiting for him. For whom? Whom we are seeing right in front of us. We are waiting for the person to come who is sitting right in front of me. What do you say about this? What do you say about this? See this point, very, very interesting. Even in the example, it is very interesting. See, Advaita, people enjoy, people feel happy to see only, to understand Advaita only in the illustration, only in the Drishtanta. They don't look at Atmanubhava. They look at the illustration and they feel very happy that, oh yes, Advaita is correct. How do you say Advaita is correct? They give an example of a rope and snake. You mistake the rope for snake. And on bringing the light, you understand there is no snake, there is only rope. This is how the Jagat is Mithya, Brahma, Satya. Yes, now I understand Advaita. How can you Advaita? You have understood Advaita? Advaita of what? Rope Advaita or Atma Advaita? If you have understood rope Advaita, that's okay. But that is not Atma Advaita. Many people understanding it in the Drishtanta. In the Drishtanta they understand. And they think that he is great. Understanding in Drishtanta is different. That only facilitates, that only helps your mind how to look at, that's all. The example prepares your mind, creates an angle of looking, a way of looking, angle or a way of looking. It creates a state of mind, a way of looking in your mind. So in that angle, your mind looks. That's all. Purpose of example is to prepare your mind, to prepare your way of looking at it in your mind. Mind having got that way, he looks at it. Suppose in the microscope, you have to see something. In the blood picture, he has taken somebody's blood picture and he says, and he looks at it. First time when you look at in the microscope, you see many things, colors, shapes and etc. And he says RBC, where is RBC? Or where is WBC? The person in the microscope sees many things. I say, which one is it? And he say, are you not seeing? I am seeing many things, but which one you are talking about? Now he gives, see, here is a shape like this, a seed. It is like this shape. He gives a shape. Like this, in this color, it is like this, like this. He gives an illustration, an example. It is like this. Keeping this in mind, look for it. When you look for it, yes, now I identify. Yes, it is there. So to help you to identify, you are seeing it, but unable to cognize it, unable to identify it. So to be able to identify, your mind has to be prepared. To prepare your mind, have a certain angle of looking, certain way of looking. Example serves the purpose. So the Rajju Sarpa, the rope and snake, the example of a rope and snake helps you how to look at Brahma, how to look at your Anubhava. What you see as a snake is inseparable from rope. It is already part of rope. It is already part of rope. It is not outside the rope. So being within the rope, a snake is popping up like a reflection in the mirror. You see a picture in the cell phone. Here you see the picture in the cell phone. Does the picture appearing in the cell phone come out of the cell phone and appear to you? No. It appears within the cell phone. Similarly, snake is within the rope. The mistaken snake is not outside the rope. But you see that it is, although within the rope, it is something additional to the rope. It has developed within the rope, but still living in the rope. You think like that. It is not developed from outside. It is not something outside. It is within the rope. Therefore, it is included in the rope. Once you see the rope, you don't have to see the snake separately. The perception of the snake is included in the perception of rope. So this example helps you to see that the Jagat and Jiva, Pramatru, Prameya, all this world, the entire waking state has to be included in Sushupti. Sushupti is a Sakshi, the witnessing consciousness of waking state and dream state. Sushupti is the witnessing consciousness. It is witnessing the entire waking state and dream state. But I, remaining a pramata within the waking state, see the external world. Now the teaching is, what the teaching does is, the knower and the known world, the entire waking state is already included in the Sakshi. It is not something additional to Sakshi, it is included in the Sakshi. From the standpoint of Sakshi, it doesn't exist as something separate. So this example helps you to look at yourself how Pramatru Prameya, the knower and the known world, time, place, all this put together, see them in one stroke. When you try to see them one stroke, you stand as a Sakshi. Because by standing as a Pramata, you cannot see the entire world. By entire world, you mean Pramata and Prameya. You can see only Prameya standing as a Pramata. If you stand as a Pramata, you can see only Prameya. You can see the world within the waking state, but we are talking of the entire state. Entire state means Pramata, Pramana, Prameya. The entire state see together. When you try to see the state as state entirely, then where do you stand? You cease to be Pramata and you become Sakshi. That means the cloak of Pramatrutvam you have worn, you give it up and stand as a Sakshi. When you stand as a Sakshi and try to look at the entire waking state, to the Sakshi, where does the waking state appear? Come on, tell me. Just as, can you see your face? You see with your eyes, you can see the wall, the books, the cloth, here the cell phone, pen, and this calendar, this danda, and all these things you can see. Table, chair, these books and paper, cloth, and etc. Bag, all these things you can see. But can you see the face with the help of your eyes? Can you see the eyes themselves? You cannot see. Because eyes is yourself. Eyes are yourself. There is no division between you and your eyes, you and your face. In the example, similarly, when you look at the entire waking state, not as a pramata, but as a witness of the state. Witness means what? Witness means one who stands independent of the state. Sakshi is the one who stands independent of the waking state. Independent means what? See, who is Sakshi? Sakshi stands independent of the waking and dream state. So, since dream also, while experienced, dream also appears as waking, therefore, we don't refer to another state. If you understand the waking state, other state is included in it. Okay. When you are, so you, in order to see the entire state, you have to be the Sakshi of it, witness of it. Witness means what? I am seeing the world. No, you are not seeing the entire world. You are seeing only Prameya Prapancha through your mind. So you standing as a knower, you are seeing the known. This is not the perception of complete world. Complete means what? You should include pramata too, jnata too. You include the jnata and also time and space, and see the sun and moon and the stars and panchabhuta and everything, time and place. So if you include time and place, you cease to be pramata, because the pramata is only a state of mind. It is a vritti, a thought of mind sticking to consciousness. Sticking means by adhyaropa. You have imposed an individuality upon the sakshi, but sakshi is free from what you have imposed. You have imposed your individuality, okay, but sakshi, from the standpoint of sakshi, he was never an individual. Okay, sakshi was never an individual. So sakshi is the one who witnesses the entire state. Okay, how do you know? And he is independent. He is not like a pramata. Pramata is a part of the waking world, and sakshi is not part of any state. He is stateless and is independent of all states. Okay. So, how do you say sakshi is independent? Sakshi is independent because if the world is, it gets illumined. Even in the absence of the world, sakshi continues to exist. That's why sakshi is independent. Independent means sakshi doesn't need the waking state or any state as a necessary accompaniment, as a compulsory accompaniment to consciousness. Okay, because sakshi or witness is independent. Independent means consciousness doesn't require an object of consciousness to be consciousness. Consciousness to remain consciousness. Consciousness to be consciousness doesn't require an object to illumine, doesn't require something to be aware of. Consciousness is not a relative state. Consciousness is, if it were relative state, there is an object and you are conscious of it. Okay, so this is a relative consciousness. But sakshi is not a relative consciousness, it is independent consciousness. How do you understand that? Independent. Relative means relationship obtains through mind and sense organs. Consciousness can see anything other than itself through mind and sense organ. One is a relation. Okay. When consciousness is not independent, what happens? Then you will understand what is independence. Consciousness is not independent means consciousness needs mind and sense organs to know the world. Mind and sense organs. It needs, it has to impose sense organs upon itself. It has to take up mind upon itself. Then only through mind, through sense organs, it can see the world. Okay, therefore, that consciousness which sees through mind and sense organs is not independent. That means it is dependent upon mind and sense organs. Okay, sakshi is not dependent upon any mind. Therefore, he objectifies the mind and the world put together. The mind and the world, both put together, he objectifies. Means he tries to know. Okay, so therefore, Pramatru is dependent. Because two things. One is he is dependent and relative. He is dependent on mind and sense organs. Relative because Pramatru is Pramatru only when he is aware of Agneyam, an object of knowledge. But Sakshi is independent because he doesn't depend upon the mind and sense organs. Mind, sense organs, body, all this put together form the part of state. All this put together, the entire world put together forms a part of entire world. Then one who is not part of the waking state or state, like the mind and sense organs. Mind, sense organs, body are part of the world. But when Sakshi is not part of the world because He includes the mind in the state, includes the sense organs in the state, includes the body in the state, includes the time and space in the state, and then to know the entire world, where should he stand? In order to know the entire world, where does the Sakshi stand? Does he stand within the waking state? No. Therefore, consciousness is not dependent upon mind and sense organs in order to know the world. Okay, first point. Next point is, it is not relative. Sakshi is independent and not relative. Independent means compare with Pramatru. Pramatru is dependent upon mind and sense organs. How dependent? He identifies. Pramatru is Pramatru only when he identifies with the mind and sense organs. In the absence of mind and sense organs, Pramata ceases to be Pramata. Therefore, Pramata inevitably contains mind and sense organs as part of him. Then only he is a Pramata. One, this is Pramata is dependent. Second one is Pramata is always relative. He is always related. Pramata is a Pramata when he is related to Prameya. See, like in waking state, whenever you are in waking state, you are always conscious of something other than yourself. Are you not? All the time. All the time we are aware of some or other object, and standing as a subject, we know some or other object. So, because Pramatru is always related to Prameya, without Prameya, Pramatru cannot know, and Pramatru cannot remain Pramata. Pramata cannot remain Pramata. But whereas Sakshi is independent and non-relative, Pramata is independent. Independent of what? He doesn't need mind and sense organs to illumine. To illumine, it doesn't need mind and sense organs. Means what? What does he do? Pramata gives up his identification with mind and sense organs. When he gives up his identification with mind and sense organs, he is Sakshi. Okay. So when he knows the world, he knows the world not through the mind and sense organs. So he includes the mind and sense organs towards the side of, on the side of the world. So time, place, mind and sense organs and body, all these he joins them with the world. And he, standing as a consciousness, tries to know it or knows it. So when the Sakshi witnesses, he gives up the cloak of mind, sense organs, body, and also time and place. You can see the world as existing within time and place. Now you think of any other object. Any object in the world exists in some time and some place. Without time and place, can you see any object? No object can be seen without getting located in time and located in space. But here we are including the entire time. That means what? Past, present, future. All this in one stroke trying to know. Then space also, entire space, entire time, and the entire world. Entire world means subject and the object. Mind, sense organs, body, and aham buddhi also is included. This is, Sakshi is independent, unlike Pramatru. Unlike Pramata, okay. Not only he is independent, he is relative. Idi allೇ ಇರಿ. ಎರಡಾ? Okay. So, Sakshi is independent. Independent means what? Is unlike Pramata. Just as Pramata is dependent means identifies. Pramata is in the state of identification with mind and sense organ. Pramata cannot imagine himself to be Pramata. Pramata cannot exist as a Pramata without being identified with mind and sense organs. Okay, unless he contains the mind and sense organs as a part of him, he can't be Pramata. If mind and sense organs are left out, he ceases to exist. Pramata doesn't exist. Or the Pramata is understood as Sakshi. So Sakshi is independent. Okay. And Sakshi is non-relative. Non-relative means what? Unlike Pramata. Everything is only contrast. Unlike Pramata. Pramata knows the world. Pramata is always in relationship with the world. Some object of the world. Pramata is always in relationship with the object of a world. Some object is always required. It always stands in relationship with an object. If there is no object, Pramata ceases to exist. See, Pramata is dependent and also relative, whereas Sakshi is independent of mind and sense organs. That means he is not an individual. Pramata is an individual because he identifies with the mind and sense organs. Sakshi is not an individual, he is a non-individual. Okay. Second point is, Sakshi's existence is not related to the world. If world is there, it gets illumined. If world is not there, still Sakshi continues. Sakshi is non-related to the world because to be related to the world is necessary for the Sakshi. If world was necessitated by Sakshi, then Sakshi would have become relative. Then Sakshi would have become Pramata. We would have called Sakshi as a Pramata because if Sakshi were related to the something other than me, that means I am and something other than me. So this itself, accepting of the two, shows there is a relationship. What is a relationship? It is something other than me. That's what is relationship. But Sakshi is not relative. Not relative means what? Just as Pramata remains Pramata only when he is related with object of knowledge. Sakshi is independent and also non-relative. Non-relative means he doesn't need an object to illumine. So Sakshi remains, so therefore consciousness is a nature on the part of Sakshi, is not a related. Consciousness is not a relationship with an object. What is light? Is light a relationship with others, or it is an independent entity? When you say distance, what do you call distance? Distance is a relationship between 2 points. Okay, distance is a relationship between 2 points. Point where I am sitting, and when I see something other than me, how far is it? It is 10 kilometers away from you, or it is a half kilometer away from you, or it is some 100 yards visible from you. So it is relativeness. But Sakshi, Pramata, distance is a relative. The very idea of distance implies a relation between two. But Sakshi is not relation between two. Therefore, Sakshi's consciousness is his nature. It is not his relation. Pramata's consciousness is a relationship. See, note it. This is very important. Pramata's consciousness is a relationship. It is a relative knowledge. Okay, Pramata's consciousness. But the consciousness, now consciousness of Sakshi, you can't say consciousness is Sakshi. Therefore, consciousness of Sakshi means consciousness which is Sakshi. You have to say consciousness of Atma, you can't say that. Consciousness of Atma, consciousness which is Atma. Atma, which is consciousness. You have to say like that. Atma is synonymous to consciousness. Consciousness is synonymous to Atma. These two words mean one. There are no two words. There are no two things. Okay. So the consciousness, which is Atma, is its nature. Consciousness is nature of the Atma, is not a relationship of Atma with something. See, distance is a relationship of me with something. Time is also. Time is a relationship. Time is a relationship with some object, either of past or present or some future. When I am related to something, that very relationship involves time. The relationship is called time. But Sakshi is pure consciousness because he is independent of mind and sense organs. He is also non-relative. That means if the world is there, if the waking state is there, it gets illumined. Even if it is not there, doesn't make any difference. Okay, that means Sakshi to be Sakshi. That means consciousness to be consciousness. It doesn't need another object. If object is there, it illumines. If it is not there, also illumines. Its illumination is not a relative thing. He is illumination because he is illumination by his very nature. He is illumination by his very nature. So consciousness is not an action on his part. Consciousness is not a quality of him. Consciousness is neither an action nor a quality of Atma. Consciousness is neither an action on his part. Action means you come into action. You come to do that action. Nor is it a quality. It's his very nature. Very nature means consciousness is synonymous to Atma. Atma is synonymous to consciousness. So there is no adjective noun relationship. There is no guni sambandha. Consciousness is Atma, that is Sakshi. So Sakshi is consciousness by his very nature. Okay. So he is natural. Consciousness to be consciousness, it doesn't have to do anything, doesn't get related to something, doesn't have to know one particular thing. Whether the thing is there or not, I am just aware of. My very nature is consciousness. My very nature is consciousness. Okay, watch this. Consciousness is naturally there. Even these words are listened in the consciousness. Consciousness doesn't need the words. If the words are there, they get illumined. But consciousness itself doesn't need. Okay. Doesn't need anything other than itself. Its very nature is consciousness. Therefore, Atma's very nature is consciousness. So you are not, it is not relative. It is like, can you see your face? You don't have to see the face. Without appearance of the snake, still you exist. Can you see your eyes? You can't see. Then how can you say you are conscious? I am conscious of. If the eyes are present, I am conscious. If eyes are not working, also I am conscious. So my consciousness is by its nature natural. It is not artificial. Artificial means relative. So I cannot see my own height. Can I know how, am I tall or short? You have to compare with others. By yourself, what are you? I am just myself. You cannot say anything. Therefore, consciousness is by its very nature consciousness. So to be consciousness, it doesn't have to do anything. It doesn't require another object. That means consciousness. And third point is consciousness by knowing something. See, in order to know something, consciousness doesn't undergo change. In order to be conscious, it has to be conscious alone. In order to know something, it has to be consciousness. That means consciousness is, knowing is his very nature. It is not a special act on his part. It is not a special quality, a special state. Consciousness is not a state of Atma, is not a quality of Atma, nor it is an action of Atma, action on the part of Atma. I repeat, consciousness is not a state of Atma, is not a quality of Atma, is not, okay, consciousness is not action. It is not an action on its part. Then what is it? It is itself. To be conscious, you are to be consciousness alone. You are to be Atma, to be conscious. That means you are already that. Yes, that's what we mean. So you don't need an attempt to understand yourself, because you are already the consciousness. Okay, so therefore, Sakshi Atma is independent of mind and sense organs. Sakshi's identity doesn't depend upon mind and sense organs, whereas Pramata's identity, knower's identity, necessarily requires mind and sense organs. Without mind and sense organs, he loses his identity, means he loses himself. Sakshi exists independent of mind and sense organs. He doesn't need identification with mind and sense organs and body. In fact, he stands without body. He stands even when there is no mind. When the mind is, he is. Even though there is no mind, still he is. Okay. So consciousness is the very nature of Atma. It doesn't have to make any effort on its part. Second thing, it doesn't need to get related to something. Oh, I am conscious, I should be conscious. He is consciousness. He doesn't need to get related to something. If something happened to be there, it is its own job, it gets illumined. If it is not there, still I continue to be conscious. Therefore, consciousness is non-dual. There is nothing other than it. It can't see. Consciousness cannot see anything other than itself. Consciousness cannot see anything other than itself, because consciousness remains consciousness. Like space. You bring any amount of objects into the space. Does the space get crushed? Does space get tilted to one side? By building a house, do you think the space gets tilted? Or space get crushed? All these things do not happen anything at all. Space is just a pristine, pure, natural state. Similarly, Atma is in its natural state as consciousness. So the consciousness is his nature. And something, there is nothing other than itself. What you call other is also myself. It is like knowing my height, looking at my face, looking at my eyes is disappointing, because you can never see yourself. So the other is only part of, like my height is myself. I don't see my height for myself. My face I cannot see. Others may see. My face is myself. And the others also myself. The entire waking state is consciousness alone. Entire waking state is already part of consciousness. Consciousness. It is. So the consciousness is independent and also unconnected with others. Third point is, from the standpoint of consciousness, there is no world apart from it. No mountains, no rivers, no forest, and nothing. Okay. So this consciousness is swatah siddha. You don't have to prove it. In fact, only when the consciousness is, you are able to discuss and argue and listen to everything. You are able to listen because there is already consciousness. You are able to discuss, you are able to understand, you are able to pursue, you are able to imagine, think and feel and experience. All that is against the background of consciousness. Okay. And therefore, for the consciousness, nothing apart from itself exists. Because if there is another thing existing, I fall into pramata and I start seeing prameya. To be able to see prameya, you have to fall into pramatrutvam. You become pramata who exists within time and place. But Sakshi includes time and place. When you include time and place, when you include the entire world, you remain separate from the world. Next step, the world is not separate from you. World is also yourself only. Okay. This way, Advaita is a matter of everybody's experience. Then what does the Shruti Pramana say? Shruti Pramana corrects your misunderstanding about Atma which you have been seeing, again and again seeing, continuously seeing. Therefore, Atma doesn't depend upon anything external. That means something other than itself doesn't exist. So, Sakshi, Cheta, Kevalo, Nirgunascha. Sakshi is Kevala, Nirgunaha, and Chetaha, consciousness. Okay. So, in spite of that background, underlying background consciousness, still mind thinks that, oh, that I am small being, I am an individual, identify with body and mind, and I am trying to see the world. All this Shankaracharya says is a false thinking. Okay. Therefore, Swatasiddham, how can you teach? He says, Ekadhaivan drashtavyam apayatadapramayam dhruvam. Atma is aprameya. It's not an object of sense organs and mind. Therefore, it is aprameya. Dhruvam viraja para akashat. He is free from all faults and blemishes. Nahi vayam, where is the shloka? Viraja para. He is virajaha. Virajaha means without rajas, impurities, without impurity, without blemishes. Okay. Param akashat. He is beyond akasha. Akasha means what? Time and place. Akasha means time and place. What does the time and place mean? Subject-object relationship is time and place. You see the point? The relation between subject and object is time and place. If you give up this time and place, you stand as a Sakshi and there is no world for you. It continues, that's a different thing. Means it appears to be there. But from the Atma standpoint, it doesn't exist. Okay. Therefore, Mahan Dhruvaha iti aprameyata shravanat. Atma is taught to be aprameya. Aprameya. Now the next point comes. If aprameya, how do you know then? Vishishtadvaitins told that no, there is no pramana to reveal Advaita. All the pramanas talk of only Savishesham Brahma and you are a Jiva dependent on him, serve him and enjoy his blessing. Okay. Aprameyatvetva katham tat pratipattihi. If Atma is totally unknown, unknowable, aprameya means is not an object of knowledge, unknowable, then how do we know? How do we know it? Okay. Therefore, just a minute. Therefore, aprameyatve, how do you know it? Katham va tadartam vedantarambaha. If Atma is aprameya, not an object of knowledge, how can we know? Then how can Vedanta also teach? See, Sarve Vedantaha Arabhyante told. He says, how can be? He says, now reply is, Shrunu, we are teaching you. It is not teaching, it is teaching you how to objectify Atma. It is teaching you, you don't need very faculty of subject-object relationship. You don't have to remain as a subject. You don't have to remain as a subject and knowing the object. In order to know the object, you have to stand as a subject and get related to object. That means you remain a subject and get related to objects through mind and sense organs. Here, you don't need mind and sense organs. Atma is aprameya. Aprameya means what? See, aprameya means what? First you understand what is Prameya, then in Vedanta everything you think of the opposite, then you understand this. You think of Prameya, oh time is up, but the topic changes, therefore, okay, we'll cover next class alone. Anyway, just I started it. Prameya means standing as a Pramata, you can know the Prameya. So, Prameya means you have to stand as a Pramata. Atma Aprameya means without being Pramatru, you know the Atma. See, you cannot be Pramatru in order to know the Atma. You cannot be the knower to be able to know the Atma. But to know the world, to know anything other than Atma, you have to remain Pramatru. Now here, when you say Atma is Advitiya, to know these things, what do? You don't objectify the Atma. That means by standing as a Pramata, you don't try to know the Atma. That doesn't work. Because when Atma is not an object, where is the need for you to be subject also? The need to remain as a subject is required when you need to know the object. When Atma is not an object of knowledge, you don't need to be Pramatru. Your very Pramatrutvam dissolves into your consciousness. Then you remain pure consciousness, your individuality gets negated. This is how you know it. So now I say, if there is a Prameya, if there is Aprameya, two things. To know the Prameya, you have to become Pramata. But to know the Aprameya Atma, cease to be Pramatru. You give up the very Pramatrutvam. The Pramatrutvam melts into Sakshi. There is consciousness without Prameya. How does the Pramata live? Pramata lives by getting related to Prameya, by identifying with the mind and sense organs. So, Sakshi doesn't identify with mind and sense organs. Sakshi doesn't know anything other than itself. That means other doesn't exist for Sakshi standpoint. It doesn't know means it doesn't exist for it. Therefore, if it were Pramata, he would be related to Prameya. But here, no relativeness. Everything is clear. Okay. Remaining point we will see in the next class. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om Tat Sat.